In terms of other issues, there are more mandates. And I think some of these elements are really kind of right on the target because our emergency rooms, not just here in Modesto and Stanislaus County, are filled with a lot of patients that don't have insurance or are underinsured in terms of how much is paid, like Medi-Cal, and they're seeking primary care in our emergency rooms. So the effort here is to increase the number of people that would be covered by Medicaid, that's what it's called in every other state except California, up to a level of 133% of the federal poverty level. Currently in California, Medi-Cal covers to just 6% above the federal poverty level. So with this mandate, in essence, 25% more people, higher income, will be able to qualify for Medi-Cal. And they're going to pay the physicians a higher amount. They're going to pay the physicians not the Medi-Cal rates, but the Medicare rates in an effort to try to encourage physicians to see the Medi-Cal patients. Moving primary care out of the emergency department is absolutely necessary. The problem is we haven't increased the supply of physicians on the outside to take care of the additional patients, and will it really work? More parts of the plan, subsidies, tax credits, and again, there's plenty of, I would tell you, if you're interested in looking at the best site I found is the Kaiser Family Foundation website. And their summary, I think, was only 49 pages long. But if you have more interest in all these details, I would suggest you go there. The biggest issue, of course, is how are we going to pay for this? And all the moving dials and levers of income and taxes and fees to pay for this. And you can see there's a number of different ways that are planned here. Increasing pharmaceutical taxes, increasing taxes on medical device manufacturing sector. You know, I was an economics major. I believe those companies are going to try to find a way to pass on that extra cost onto providers. Then we're going to have to pass it on in some other way. Additional taxes at the bottom bullet there. The health insurance industry is going to be hit with additional taxes. There's going to be an excise tax on premium, or also known as Cadillac health plans. And frankly, my favorite, the 10% tax on indoor tanning salons. That's going to pay for it. So that's kind of a summary, and again, you know, with a short period of time tonight, again, I would just tell you to go to some of those websites, but you know, you just kind of say, wow, that is really a lot. There's a lot of moving parts here. Time will tell if this is all kind of well and good, but in my view, and the second major part of what I want to talk about is there's a bigger issue out there for us, and you heard a reference to Social Security. That pales in comparison to our issue that's the biggest issue, which I believe faces us, which is Medicare. It's unsustainable in terms of how it's been constructed. And I'd like to quickly talk to you about the history of Medicare, the current status, a few of the misconceptions about Medicare, and then my view of the future. And to start to understand Medicare's history, you actually have to start with the understanding of the history of Social Security itself, which started with FDR in the Great Depression in 1935, and it was set up for citizens at age 65 and beyond. It was to be a supplemental retirement income. But notice that the average life expectancy in 1935 was 61 years old. So it was very much supported by the public, and it was a safe bet, if you will, by the government. So remember the life expectancy and remember the last bullet. At that point in time, there were 16 workers in the workplace providing the funds to support one retiree. That ratio has changed dramatically. So 30 years later, Medicare comes in play with President Johnson, and again, age 65 and beyond, but at this point in time, the average life expectancy was 70 years old. It was certainly supported by the public. It was supported as compared to the bill a couple weeks ago. It was bipartisan support, 307 votes in the House and 70 votes in the Senate. It was a good bet for the government if they managed and modified and updated the way in which the metrics work. But at this point in time, in 1965, there were only 12 workers for every one enrollee. Medicare today, 65 and beyond, now the life expectancy is nearly 80 years for an American. It's certainly supported by the public. It is, in my view, viewed as the third rail. You don't touch the electric rail in a subway, you'll be electrocuted. Politicians really don't want to deal with fixing Medicare. And we're down to only 3.7 workers for every enrollee, and that's expected to get worse in another 20 years to only 2.5 workers for every one person covered by Medicare. In our county, it's anticipated in the next 10 years, we're going to see an increase by 45% of the number of people in our county that are age 65 and older. I would tell you, looking over there, that includes all 3 of your speakers, myself and the other 2 in the next 10 years. So, but Dave, it's really an actuarial issue, the amount of, math and how much risk we have. But what, aren't the providers charging too much? And isn't that why Medicare is upside down? Well, they pay physicians on a fee schedule. They don't get to really negotiate that fee schedule. They're told what they're going to get paid. Medicare does not cover stays in skilled nursing facilities. And with hospitals, they pay us on the stay. They don't pay us based upon how many supplies or how many CT scans. We're paid on the diagnosis. And that went into place in the early 1980s. But before that, they paid us based on cost. Well, how do we do as hospitals? Just talking about hospitals in terms of performance financially with Medicare. 2 columns. Look at the middle. That's the average, the 50th percentile. This is a year-and-a-half old data. In 2008, the average American hospital lost 9% on taking care of Medicare patients. In California, because of a lot of other issues that I don't have time to go into, we're worse than that. We're 15%. This last year, it increased to 12% nationally and 17% in California. Medicare really is kind of unsustainable the way it's currently structured. And the third rail, I would like to show you a very short video clip of a pretty controversial interview that the president had with one of the Fox News reporters, Brett Baer, I think his name is about 2 weeks ago. It was a 20-minute interview. See if you can count how long they talk about this Medicare part.
Guy. No, and what is absolutely true is that this will not solve our whole Medicare problem. We're still going to have to fix Medicare over the long term.
It's $38 trillion
Absolutely.
in the hole.
And that's...
Anybody count? It's 14 seconds. Did you hear the number? 38 trillion. $38 trillion underfunded. Now, we were trying to pass a bill and make sure it was under $1 trillion, but we are underfunded in terms of our liabilities for Medicare at $38 trillion. Now, Jason was talking about Social Security. That's the blue band. That's only $7 trillion underfunded. So in a 20-minute interview, the third rail got discussed for 14 seconds in a 20-minute interview. And that's probably the last you're going to hear about it for quite some time, in my personal view. But this is a little busy slide, but the wider the band, the longer the projected length and solvency of Medicare. And the top band is 1991, and you can see it was going backwards. Less and less projected good sort of solvency. And in 1997, when it got down to only a projection of 4 years left, is when the Balanced Budget Act was enacted. And that was President Clinton, and it affected a lot of the economy, but it slowed the rate of Medicare payments to hospitals and physicians very severely. This is what's happened with Sutter Health in terms of how we do relative to taking care of Medicare patients since the Balanced Budget Act. So if we lose 30% on taking care of our Medicare patients, how do we make up for that? We lose money on taking care of Medi-Cal patients. We certainly lose money on taking care of self-pay patients. In some hospitals, that's 70% of our entire business. In some hospitals, it's higher than that. And so what ends up happening is cost shifting, and we make it up by charging Blue Cross and Blue Shield and everyone else.